What happens when a former U.S. president meets one of the world's most controversial and authoritarian leaders on American soil, while a brutal war in Ukraine rages on? It gets called extremely productive, of course. That's what Donald Trump claimed after his highly publicized meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, held not in Washington or Geneva, but in the icy, symbolic territory of Alaska. Far closer to Moscow than Manhattan, and steeped in shared U.S.-Russian history, the location was as bold as the message Trump was sending. Let's talk peace. But without the usual players at the table. The scene unfolded quietly, then roared through media globally when both leaders stood side by side at a joint press conference. Putin began by calling the talks neighborly, noting that the U.S. and Russia are literal neighbors, separated only by a few kilometers across the Bering Strait. He invoked history to paint a picture of long-standing connection: the Russian Orthodox churches in Alaska, Russian-American cooperation during World War II through the Alaska-Siberia Air Bridge, and shared sacrifice in the fight against Nazism. Then, shifting pointedly to the war in Ukraine, Putin labeled the conflict a tragedy, called Ukrainians Russia's brotherly nation, and blamed Western provocation for the war's escalation. He insisted Russia had valid security concerns, and subtly implied the West had ignored them for too long. According to him, peace would be possible only if Russia's interests were acknowledged, and Europe's military balance reconsidered. Trump followed with familiar confidence, calling the meeting extremely productive, and saying many points were agreed upon. He refrained from offering any specifics, saying only that the most important issue hadn't yet been resolved, but they were close. He praised Putin's willingness to talk, spoke about his desire to stow. Public response was swift and scathing. Across online platforms, tens of thousands of comments poured in, most ridiculing the notion that anything meaningful had occurred. It wasn't a summit, it was a submit, one viral remark read. Others called it political theater, a taxpayer-funded PR stunt, and an absolute embarrassment. Many pointed out the lack of deliverables: no ceasefire, no agreement, no pressure applied on Putin. Instead, viewers noted, the body language and language itself leaned more toward admiration than confrontation. Statements like, "Putin wants peace as much as I do," and the mutual expressions of trust left many wondering whether Trump had brought anything to the table besides optics. For Putin, however, it was a PR win. He faced no tough questions, received no criticism, and was offered legitimacy on a global stage. The controversy surrounding his war in Ukraine, his military's civilian bombings, global condemnation, and ICC war crime charges were left unmentioned. Instead, Trump appeared to minimize Russia's aggression and again distanced himself from traditional U.S. foreign policy positions, echoing tones that critics say normalize authoritarianism. The message: the world's problems can be solved if two strong men get in a room and shake hands. In purely strategic terms, Trump got his headlines, cemented himself as an alternative to the current administration's foreign policy, and reminded his base of his unique brand of diplomacy. It's the same Trump playbook: defy expectations, embrace the villain, lean into controversy, and call it strength. He deployed this method with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and now, again, with Vladimir Putin. But the key difference is timing. This meeting came at a moment when Ukraine is publicly pleading for more international support, when NATO is expanding eastward, and when global sentiment remains firmly AGA. So while Trump and Putin may have shared warm words and praised each other's vision, history may not remember this as a turning point for peace, but as a masterclass in political optics. Beneath the neighborly smiles and strategic vagueness lies a sobering truth. Diplomacy without accountability isn't progress, it's propaganda, and peace without inclusion isn't peace at all.